Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of 3 Wide. I'm your host, Radney Crawford. The first round of the Cup Series playoffs wrapped up this past Saturday at Bristol, and in today's video, we're going to be going over which drivers were eliminated and which drivers' championship hopes stayed intact. But before we dive into that, let's hear a word from our presenting sponsor, Hunt to Harvest.
So before we get started on this week's episode, let me tell you about our presenting sponsor, Hunt to Harvest. If you are looking to upgrade or update your hunting apparel, then hunttoharvest.com is where you need to go. They have a wide selection of shirt designs for many types of hunting as well as fishing, and right now they are having a sale on their long sleeve shirts. So if you're looking to get a head start on your winter collection, then hunttoharvest.com has what you need. They also have some brand new hat designs in, and they are going fast. So head over to hunttoharvest.com and get your order in before it's too late. And when you go to check out, be sure to use the promo code RADNEY18923. That's RADNEY 18923 for even more savings at checkout. And this can all be done at hunttoharvest.com.
So on Saturday night at Bristol Motor Speedway, you had Denny Hamlin getting his third win on the season, but also several drivers' championship hopes coming to an end. You had Kevin Harvick in his final season, the defending champion Joey Logano, as well as Michael McDowell and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. eliminated from the Cup Series playoffs. For Michael McDowell, he went into this race in a must-win situation, and while he wasn't able to do that, he was eliminated. He did go out swinging. He got a 6th-place finish in Stage 2 and ended the race in that position as well. So a good solid night for Michael McDowell, just too little too late to move on to the next round of the playoffs. And for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he was in a must-win situation as well. He comes away with a 10th-place finish. So while, yes, it is disappointing for both these drivers and teams to be eliminated in the first round, they can still keep their heads up high. They finished the round strong and can now look forward to building up momentum for 2024. As for Joey Logano, the defending champion, and Kevin Harvick in his final season, they had a night of struggle. For Logano, he was involved in a crash just past the halfway point, which not only knocked him out of the race, but also below the cut line. He was still just 4 points from that cut line, so there was still some hope there, even with him off the track, for if something went wrong with Bubba Wallace and Martin Truex Jr., that he may still have a chance to make it to the next round. Just unfortunately for him and his team, that did not come about. And for Harvick, really, it was like he was never there all night. It's just a complete struggle race for him at Bristol, which is surprising for both him and his team. Normally, they have strong runs at Bristol, and they came into this race 7 points above the cut line. So hopes were pretty high that they were going to easily secure their way to round 2. Unfortunately, that did not happen either, and now Kevin Harvick's chances for another championship in his final season have ended. And I'd like to say that now Harvick can focus on getting into victory lane over these final few races before season's end, but I just don't know if that's going to happen. Harvick made comments after the race to PRN that he's ready for Phoenix, and it seems like over the first round of the playoffs that he was just kind of in cruise control. He never seemed to buy in that his team could be a contender or be someone to keep an eye on for a possible upset. Now, with that being said, this 4 team has shown speed throughout the season. I know it's been a struggle year for Stewart-Haas Racing as a whole, but this 4 car has been the strongest of their group. And if one of these last 7 race weekends, Harvick shows up with a strong car and a lot of speed, there's no reason to think that we won't see a rejuvenated Kevin Harvick go out a race winner. Now, moving on to the drivers who did make the cut to keep their championship hopes alive. First, you have Martin Truex Jr. I mentioned in the video last week that going into this racetrack, it was going to be a challenge for Truex. This isn't one of his strongest tracks, and he was 7 points below that cut line, so he definitely had his work cut out for him. He was able to get a couple stage points, have a relatively clean race, and then was gifted with Kevin Harvick's struggles throughout the night, as well as Joey Logano's crash that helped push him into round 2. And now, with that, he gets to hit the reset button with his playoff points, starts off round 2, back tied with William Byron for the top spot. And for this next round, I think we will see a more proactive Martin Truex Jr. You look back over this first round where he struggled so much. Look at Darlington after hitting the wall in practice. He even mentioned that he felt something was off the car, but he didn't want to mention anything to his team that would put him starting at the rear. So he just really kept his mouth shut and struggled to an 18th place finish. I don't think that is going to be an issue going forward. Now that Truex has seen what could happen, I think we see, like I said, a more proactive and a less complacent Martin Truex Jr. from here on out in the playoffs. And then there's Bubba Wallace. He came into this race 19 points below the cut line. And like Truex, Bristol has not been the best track for Bubba. So he was almost in a must-win situation. But then he goes out and finishes 3rd in Stage 1. And that ultimately was the difference in him getting in round 2. And I mentioned at the start of the playoffs how I thought Bubba was one of the drivers that could point his way out of the round of 16 into the next. If he could avoid mistakes, his pit crew could avoid mistakes, and they could have good, strong finishes. And besides Kansas, they really did just that. And even at Kansas, he was running second at the time when he had his issues. So all in all, not too bad a start for Bubba's first attempt at the playoffs. Now Bubba goes into round 2 where you have Talladega on the schedule, the track where Bubba got his first career win. And we know how strong of a super speedway racer he is. So there's a good chance you could see Bubba survive round 2 as well. With the points reset for this next round, right now the bottom 4 drivers are Ross Chastain, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, and Bubba Wallace. And I wanted to look at these 4 drivers and the next 3 tracks on the schedule, Texas, Talladega, and the Charlotte Roval, and see where their strengths are and what their chances are of getting back above the cut line at these tracks. And starting out with Texas, no driver has been stronger in the last 10 races than Ryan Blaney. He has scored more points than any other driver, and he also won last year's All-Star race, which was at Texas. Then you got Brad Keselowski. He has scored 4 straight top 10s at the track. He was also last year's pole winner, so Brad's going to be one of those dark horse guys to keep an eye on this upcoming weekend. Then next up you have Talladega, which to me is where this gets really interesting. Right now the bottom 4 drivers, all of them are previous winners here. And once again, Ryan Blaney has scored more points as well as wins here. Then you have Brad Keselowski. His last win came at Talladega and he finished 5th here in the spring. Meanwhile, Bubba nearly won the spring race this year before being crashed on the last lap. And I would have Bubba high on my watch list for this race. You also have Ross Chastain, who won last year's spring race at Talladega simply by being in the right place at the right time and getting the right push. And sometimes that is all you need to get a win at these tracks. But don't let that fool you. Ross has always been very strong and shown a lot of speed at these super speedways. He finished 4th in the fall race last year, and normally you can find him up front at these super speedway races. Then to end this round, you have the Charlotte Roval, where once again Ryan Blaney is in a great spot, as in the 5 races at the Roval he has 1 win and 4 top 10s. As for Bubba Wallace, I think he's going to be kind of the underdog here on Charlotte Roval race weekend. He has shown improvement each and every time he's been at this track and at road course racing in general. Ross Chastain, he's a little bit hard to predict when it comes to road courses. He's very hot and cold. He's either running in the top 5, battling for the win or getting wins at road courses, or running at the very back of the pack. There seems to be no middle ground really when it comes to Ross Chastain and road courses. And as far as his finishes at the Roval, they have been less than stellar. One thing I was surprised about in my research for all this is the fact that Brad Keselowski has never won a road course race in the Cup Series. And that was hard to believe given all the strong runs he had, especially at Watkins Glen and his battles with Kyle Busch and Marcos Ambrose. But looking over his road course results over the past couple of years, Brad has not had the best of time at this style of track. So he's definitely going to be thinking that Talladega is his sweet spot to get himself above that cut line. All in all, the racing is only going to get more and more intense from here on out each and every week, and these drivers are not going to be able to afford a mistake. And Talladega is going to be the race to watch in this second round. With the current bottom 4 so strong at super speedways, it is going to be a mad rush to the checkered flag. And that'll wrap up this episode of 3 Wide. Thank y'all for joining me and watching along. If you haven't done it already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you will know when our new videos drop. I plan on releasing another one this week, going over all the news that has come out recently with silly season. It was just too much to put into this episode, so I decided to break it down into 2 parts. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week and enjoys this weekend's action from Texas Motor Speedway, and we'll see y'all next time.